Yeah. So guys, do you know how I first knew Jawang? I first knew him when he was running a campaign to be elected as the president of Tailor's College, Subang Jaya. And I was truly impressed by his speech that me and my friends, we actually went around to ask all our friends to vote for him because his speech was really sincere and inspiring. And that's how we define an ideal leader. So, and apart from that, he has previously worked in EY Malaysia as a business tax advisory summer intern as well. And he also has various legal internships with like leading Malaysian law firms. And last summer, he completed vacation schemes with two Magic Circle law firms like Allen and Overy and Linklaters. And he even secured training contracts from both the firms. And he will be joining like Linklaters as a trainee solicitor upon graduation. So it's really our honor to have him with us today. So Jawang, would you like to start sharing your inspiring journey with and some tips on creating a killer CV and LinkedIn profile with us?
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm hearing a bit of echo. Is there a waveform? Cool. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's good now. All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's my pleasure to actually be here with everyone and just to share my take on CV and LinkedIn generally, and just how my journey throughout the whole progression. So a little bit more about myself. All right. I'm born and raised in a Chinese-speaking family and a Mandarin-speaking community. So until the age of 13, I couldn't speak a single word of English. And the way I've been growing up is that I've always been put in a situation whereby I'm going against the stems. I've been put in a situation where I just need to learn and grow, and from the ground level until the top. So I had the blessing to actually score well in my primary school, and I ended my primary school standard 6 as the number one scholar in my primary school. But then my parents decided to knock my ego down and decided to send me straight into English boarding school, not boarding school, English speaking school. It's called Western Methodist, whereby coming from a Chinese primary school going into a fully English speaking school. I had my struggles, and I couldn't speak English, a single word of English. I couldn't string together a complete sentence, and I struggled to fit in. It took me I think around 2-3 years to actually get the hang of it. Like how does how the community play out? How do you actually distinguish yourself from the others, and how do you actually eventually emerge from the top? And so that's how I came about until only Form 4 and Form 5, where I started to take on more society responsibilities. And that's where I'm blessed with a lot of opportunities to meet people and to interact with people and just deploy empathy and just know how to actually work in a group and how to actually bring people up to their potential. I'm still learning. Of course, it's just the beginning of my journey. So I'm really excited to actually share my perspective on especially CV and LinkedIn with you guys. After having many years of just learning from my experience and learning from trial and error. And so so today, I guess you guys have probably heard a lot, being in ICNS, I've heard a lot on the nitty-gritty details on what to do and what not to do for CV. I'm pretty sure you guys had like a personal branding session with PwC this morning, right? The Malaysian chapter. I saw your Facebook profile. So I'm pretty sure you guys have heard a lot on what to do, what not to do. So today, I think because I'm here just to introduce some new perspective on how you should approach CV and LinkedIn. Because what I realize is that a lot of times where we get like a CV guide or someone like present on 1, 2, 3 your action steps 1, 2, 3 on how you should draft CV. A lot of time we pigeonhole ourselves in the sense that we're just going down that structure. We want to draft that specific structure, use that specific adjective, use that specific program to actually make your CV stand out. But I'm here to just introduce a new perspective of the way you should look at CV. So and also I'll just give you like an overarching theme on the whole thing and how you should approach, because I fundamentally believe that the gist of all these workshops lies within a Q&A session, whereby I actually can address specific problems from anyone so that I can go deep down and be personal on addressing specifically to your problem. So I'll allocate more time to Q&A session so that if you guys do have any questions specifically on a specific point in your CV that you want to raise up on how I should draft this, how I should approach that kind of thing, prepare a question and I'm more than happy to answer them later. So what I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes, just to give you guys more of a perspective and overarching theme on how you should approach this thing. So the first thing is that I think to set the tone for the meeting is that for CV and LinkedIn, it's primarily for your personal branding. And that is something very crucial that you need to get into your mind, right? And how you should approach a personal branding is first, fundamentally, it's all about salesmanship, right? You need to think yourself as a product, that you are actually a salesman selling yourself. And that's something that, we tend to forget about it. And we tend to, just thinking that CV is just like a paper on listing on all my achievements. It's like a cupboard where I put all my achievement on paper. But no, every single sentence, every single word in your CV is an opportunity for you to sell yourself. That's why you need to craft your pitch. Right? It's not just your CV. It's not just one paper listing all your achievement, but rather it's your pitch to the company on yourself. And one thing that you need to recognize is the fact that when the company receives your CV, they have no idea who they are, who you are, and that they don't have prior interaction with you. So that means is that they don't know how you look like. They have never spoken to you. They don't know your personality. So to actually effectively sell yourself through a piece of paper is to actually adopt personality in it, based on your description of everything. So one thing, I always get is, a question that I get from a lot of people is that I don't have any experience in leadership. I don't have experience high posts, organization like ICMS. I'm just an associate. I'm just a member in some society. What should I do? How should I even start writing a CV? So I think the important part is that, I always tell students or my peers is that it's not about what position you hold in each of the society, but rather it's your experience and your approach in doing things in that society that's matter. And that's what that will fit into your description in all your CV. It's your experience and your approach. The two things, your experience and your approach. So for instance, take it for example, you want to demonstrate teamwork demonstrate that you are a team worker, you can work in a team, in a society. A lot of time people come to me and say, how should I write about teamwork? And people will say, demonstrate teamwork skill in blah, blah, blah. So the fact that you need to demonstrate teamwork skills so expressly in your CV means that you haven't acquired that skills at all. Right? Your CV shouldn't incorporate any single skills that you want to portray in your CV itself. You need to illustrate through an approach or through an experience whereby you can actually illustrate that you have acquired teamwork skills, right? So for example, if you want to demonstrate teamwork skills, you need to say, I work hand in hand with 180 associates across 6 chapters and across 3 time zones whereby I effectively delegated tasks and following up with each and every one of the team member and make sure that they are up to their workload, for instance. All right. So from that sentence alone, you can see that you are working in a team. Right? You have effective communication skills by communicating across time zone and across and with a large sample size of people. Right. So one thing is about how you sell yourself and refrain from using express terms, right, such as hardworking or resilience or like teamwork, very, very cliche terms that you shouldn't incorporate in your CV at all, right? And second point is about reverse engineering. So a lot of time people think that CV is where you write about yourself. But when you think about a pitch, it's never about the product itself, but rather what your consumer wants of the product. So when you when you want to draft your effective pitch, you want to draft what the consumer wants to hear about the product rather than what you want to tell about the product. If you get what I mean? right? So it's about reverse engineering what the end consumer wants to hear and draft your CV from that perspective. For instance, all right, so that is about pitch. So in a CV context, it's about reverse engineering what the recruiters want to see rather than what you want your CV to be like. All right, so that's very important because a lot of times, we draft something that we think that, we think that it illustrates our skills, that's our best skill. I want to portray it to the best of my ability and everything. But your skills, for instance, like teamwork skills, might not be as valued by the company as compared to all the other skills. So for instance, you emphasize a lot on, you're a huge advocate of attention to details. You illustrate, go on and say how you go about being very very attentive to details. But for instance, company like Amazon, they don't really care about attention to details. They're looking for innovators. They're looking for someone who think out of the box. So by you illustrating your attention to details, they don't value at all. That ultimately you're not going to strike yourself as a credible candidate to them. All right. So it's about reverse engineering what they want and write and produce your CV from there. So I saw one of the questions you guys, some of you guys raised prior to this workshop is that how do I tailor my CV to a specific company? Right. So reverse engineering is one overarching theme. So next, I'm going to show you guys how exactly do you guys actually know what the company wants. So the important part is actually, I'm going to share screen now. Okay. How do I share screen?
It's just the green button at the middle. The share screen.
I got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Are you guys seeing the screen now?
Yeah, but it's just like I can only see like black thing. It's still loading.
It's still loading.
We can see it right now.
Okay. Okay. So one thing, about how you actually know what the company values is to go to the company itself and search it up about the company. So there's always one tab that says about the company. Give me a second, it's loading. So for instance, like this, JP Morgan, are you guys seeing this?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So there's always this tab about us, our business principle, history of our firm, and whatsoever. Right. So that illustrates what the company values. Right. You can say operational excellence, as you can see. What they value is to execute, to win, execution, and a lot of times where we think that I don't know how to illustrate an experience. I don't know how to tailor my stuff to the company. You can just get your ideas straight out from here. Monitor, track, for instance here, monitor, track, and report the right things at the right way. Fix ineffective reporting. Under your ICMS column, perhaps you can say when you monitor, you track, you report to your subordinates or your leaders on certain tasks or something like that. To use the buzzword that provide on by the company itself. Right? So it's very important to use the buzzword that the company provide itself, because that's buzzword, the chances are the recruiters will be aware of it. And the fact that it comes out from your CV or your cover letter goes a long way in the sense of aligning your credibility to the company itself. All right. So that's one tip that I usually would adopt, in the sense that, just going to the about page, know more about the company and what value they hold. And for instance, another one, Amazon, their leadership principle, customer obsession, ownership, invent, simplify. All of this, it's something that you can just straight up copy, not to say copy, but like you get ideas from to actually write your CV. Right, recognizing people with exceptional talent. If you hold a leadership position, you can perhaps talk more about it. And yeah, so all these things you can actually, it gives you a taste on what the companies want and how do you tailor your CV. Okay, going back to what I wanted to say. So first point is salesmanship. So that sort of conclude everything that I want to say about that. Second is the importance of personal branding. All right, second point would be personal branding. So a lot of people, especially at this age, at this technological age, where the cost of entry for each of the profession or industry is so low that it's just everything, the knowledge that you can access to all the other industries are just a click away. It's just a Google away from learning how to code. It's just a Google away from learning how to be an investment banker. So it's very important for you to actually leverage on this technological age and develop your personal brand and put your face outside in your community. Because the fact that a lot of people think that their first job is gonna be forever, it's it's a wrong perception, because people move across industries all the time. People move beyond their job all the time. So we trade on personal brands all our life. But your job might be temporary, but not your brand, not what you carries with not what that you carries with you, and your craft. That's very important. Develop your craft. So personal branding includes developing your craft. So that means finding your niche on what you think you can deliver value to your peers. For instance, I'm in the legal industry. So developing my craft specifically, I'm primarily interested in merger and acquisition, so M&A. So I've been spending a lot of time, even though in university days, we just read out on deals, read out how they structure deals and everything. And if you do start at the very beginning of your career, I mean, even now in the university days, I would consider yourself as already started your career, because if you do build up your craft very early, you get a head start once you start working. So that's very important. Developing your craft and your personal branding side, because I feel like the need to actually address that, but it's just a point for me to just get through by saying that developing your personal branding, and then you will later move on to how you actually develop your personal branding on your LinkedIn. Sorry. So yeah, the third point is self-awareness. All right, the third point is self-awareness. What self-awareness essentially means is to deeply aware of your strength and your weaknesses, and double down on strength and put aside your weaknesses. Because there are a lot of times where people just very concerned on what people think of them, and they tend to want to be someone that they isn't, or they do not have talent for. For instance, nowadays, entrepreneurship are being put on a pedestal, right? It seems that entrepreneurship is such a cool thing to do. Everyone wants to start their own business, they want to develop their own apps and everything. But the truth is, not everyone can do that. And if you do, if you think that, it's such a cool thing to do, and yet you do not recognize the fact that your strength doesn't lie within entrepreneurship, your strength doesn't lie within building a business, you will fail somewhere down the line. And by then, only you try to switch back to your right lane, you're already wasting a lot of your time. And self-awareness also very important in crafting your CV and your LinkedIn profile as well, because knowing what value you can bring to across the table, it's very important to get the person the other side to recognize your effort, right? So that means a lot of times people just want to be leader, right? So in the CV, tend to people just want to find any single instance when they lead someone. Everyone just want to be a leader, and people just think that, if I do not have leadership experience, I have nothing on my CV. But that's wrong, all right? Because every effective leadership needs effective followership, right? Every good organization needs a good leader and a good strength of followers. So you being self-aware of what the strengths are. If you are introvert, if you can't speak confidently enough, or dealing with people is not your strong suit, right? You recognizing the fact that you prefer to stay at home, read books, draft articles, do double down on that. Do not try to go about what people romanticize about, like leadership and entrepreneurship and all, but not recognizing that your strengths effectively lies elsewhere. So knowing the fact that even though you are a follower, by crafting your CV, not necessarily you need to be a leader. You can also say that, I'm an associate in ICMS, And then you demonstrate in 3 key points on how you effectively be an effective follower, right? So you can use buzzword like independent, critical thinker that's confident enough to go against the leader's principle should you identify an error. Or you can say that you empower your leader by going along, supporting their vision, and taking a back seat overview of the general things leaders see, for instance. Right? So it's about how you sell yourself, even though you are a follower. So a lot of people tend to just disregard their experience in following, but just focus on solely on their leadership experience, which I think is wrong. Because a lot of times, if you look at the context again, reverse engineer what the recruiter wants. When you first start off your career, everyone has to be a follower. You're going to start from the bottom. You have to listen to manager. You have to listen to CEO. And recruiters don't want strong characteristic or a very, very strong leader to suit every single role or fill up the whole company, the whole new trainee recruit with all the leaders. They want followers as well. So to get the job, right? Recognizing the fact that, hey, I'm not a leader, I'm a follower. I play my part and I go to my strength on like perhaps I'm a critical thinker, I'm a creative input in team where I just constantly supply creative ideas, though I'm not the one that cast vision upon the team, but rather I'm the creative input, for instance. So that's one way to describe different types of follower. So go on Google, type different types of follower, identify a single type that you are, and try to elaborate from that. And that's about reverse engineering what the recruiters want to see. All right. So that's another thing. And yeah, so that is the third point, self-awareness. And now I guess so I sort of like dealt with a lot on CV as I went along, but there are some details, nitty-gritty details that you think that I haven't addressed. Please raise it up during the Q&A session. I'm more than happy to go more in depth towards it. So the next thing I want to talk about is on LinkedIn. How do you build a LinkedIn profile? Because what I've said previously are all about CV. All right, so LinkedIn profile, I guess it goes back to my personal branding side, is that there's the misconception or a myth thinking that LinkedIn is an online CV, which is entirely wrong. All right, LinkedIn is not a CV. It's not a LinkedIn, it's not an online CV platform, but rather it's a professional community. All right, so have that perspective right affects a lot of the things that you do. Right, LinkedIn is a professional community. And what that entails is that it's a community for you to ponder ideas, gather your network, and actually build your personal brand. So a lot of people, when they get a message on LinkedIn, they freak out. They're like, oh, who actually message on LinkedIn? No one actually message on LinkedIn. But if you go deep down to know what exactly LinkedIn is, it's actually a community where you share ideas. So don't be afraid to reach out to people, reach out to peers, mentors, to actually seek mentorship on LinkedIn. There are tons of people that actually message people, cold messaging people, seeking for mentorship or seeking or like develop their business. Say, hey, you want to check it out, my thing and all. So the number one strategy on how do you develop a personal brand on LinkedIn, right? It's we call that, so that concept I got from this entrepreneur is called Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm not too sure if you guys have heard of him, Gary Vaynerchuk. We call it jab, 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 right hook. So what that means is give, take. So how do you actually build your personal brand is to give before you ask. It's very important. So that ties back down to you developing your craft first. That means you have your specialty, you have your value that you can bring across the table before you ask something back from a person. So what that means is that, for instance, right, you want to message someone on LinkedIn for a mentorship. Instead of saying that, hey, I come across your profile, you look like a very inspirational person, and can you be my mentor? Instead, go to his profile, go through his activity, what kind of articles has he shared, what kind of work has he been in, and see what value you can bring across. For instance, right? So if, for instance, if he's a marketer, right? You need to say that, oh, hey, you message him, say, hey, blah, blah. I've come across this interesting article about marketing that goes in line with what you wrote about in your article that you might be of interest of, right? So that means like it's not something that you're great at, but rather you go online, search it up, something on the marketing side that you think can be potentially helpful for him. And you insert it in your message saying that, hey, there's this article that I think you should check it out, right? That, if you do reply, that means you're bringing value to him first before you ask for mentorship. Because that's about you giving before you asking. So that's something that people tend to neglect. People think that LinkedIn is a platform where it's very superficial. People just ask, but not give. And if you look at the true LinkedIn influencer, they call that term LinkedIn influencer. They always roll out content online and they give people tons of value before they actually develop their business opportunity. They write like 8 articles that's going to be helpful for their clients in that industry before they message their clients saying that, hey, I have this business proposition. Do you want to hear about it? So it's about having that long-term investment strategy by giving first, only then you take, right? So it's in 2 contexts. One is rolling out content on your profile by either writing articles or when you want to message someone, right? Give value first. For instance, I just give you a very simple example. Attach an article that you think that person would be interested of. Put it in your message saying that, hey, you might be interested to hear this perspective or read this perspective, and then ponder ideas from there. Only then you ask for something back. So another way of building effective LinkedIn presence is what I call 18 cent strategy. So 18 cent strategy is effectively entails 9 2-cent strategy. So what that means is that you go on other people's profile. So if you're not a good writer, for instance, if you can't write a full-length article, what I can suggest you to do is to go on other people's profile or other people's article, or other people's posts, and leave a comment on it. Leave your 2 cents on that specific issues. All right. So because how LinkedIn algorithm works is that if you do comment on someone's profile, right, that person's network will see your comment, and his post will resurface on that person's newsfeed, right? So when you comment on, for instance, person A profile, that person A's post will resurface on person B's post with the specific attachment of your comment. So if you give something very interesting 2 cents, all right, it's not just an exposure to the person A's profile, but rather person A's network in person B's profile. All right. So giving your 2 cents on other people's posts would go a long way in terms of building a personal brand. So I would actually encourage you guys to start being active in a community, right? Start liking posts, start commenting on people's posts, giving your 2 cents, your take, your perspective of what people have been talking about. For instance, there are just tons of interesting topics right now, Bitcoin and whatsoever. Read about it, give your 2 cents, and engage in that discussion, engage in that community. That's how you build a personal brand. Because when people see you leaving like a constructive comment or a very, very effective comment that introduce a brand new perspective, they will actually go to your profile and read your CV. So if you want to get through to the recruiter, that is one way of going about it. It's a long shot. It's not a direct strategy, like I say. Right? It's a long-term investment strategy. Cool. I'll address that question later. I'll just go straight. So how that adds up to 18 cent strategy is that you're giving 2 cents in 9 posts. So it adds up to 18 cent strategy. So that's what they call it, 18 cent strategy. Right? So another part is to actually join community on LinkedIn. So there are actually a lot of LinkedIn community there's actually a lot of community on LinkedIn, but it just goes down to specifically a specific interest. For instance, if you're interested in blockchain, join the blockchain community. you are interested in Bitcoin, join the Bitcoin community. If you're interested in marketing, join the marketing community, right? Because that's where professional people ponder ideas, and that's where you can continue to deploy your 18 cent strategy, leaving your 2 cents, leaving your 2 cents here and there, and that's how you build your personal brand, and that's how you build your personal strategy. And from reading other people's perspectives as well, it just sort of gives you more perspective, and that trickles down, and that just snowballing to more in your knowledge brand, and that snowballing into developing your craft. That's one thing, right? So the last point, I realized that I've spoken very, very long. Last point is how do you craft your LinkedIn profile? I'm sure you guys have seen in like the guide that's provided by ICMS. If you haven't, please do read it, because I think that's really comprehensive. That's why I didn't cover a lot of points that the guide has already covered. So the LinkedIn, I think the one important part is your bio, your biography, right? So that means the introduction. So a lot of people, when they go to profile, 90% of the people will read your bio first before they actually scroll through your achievement down there. So what I can encourage you is, instead of elaborating further on your current position, insert your interests on a specific issues as well. So for instance, I would say that I'm a legal tech enthusiast. I love legal tech, so I'm a legal tech advocate, for instance. So by attaching a specific interest, when people read your profile, even though they are not from the same company, even though they're not from the same industry, but if your interests align with that person, they will actually want to connect with you. So, try to insert, not to insert like too many interests, but like 3 interests. What you have been looking at, for instance. You have been, monitoring the development of Asia markets, capital markets, for instance. Right? Put it in, on constant lookout of Asian capital market, for instance. Just put it on your LinkedIn bio. So when the interests align, people actually reach out to you. It's very important. Yeah, so that concludes whatever I'm trying to bring across. Hopefully, it gives you some helpful tips. Yeah, so one final thing that I want to address is, just deploy patience in your career progression, because fundamentally your first job is not your end game. Definitely, you're not gonna stay in your first job forever, right? Always have a North Star fixed, in the sense of 30 years down the line, 20 years down the line, where do you see yourself? What do you want to achieve? Right? Have that North Star fixed first, and then you chart your roadmap towards it. Right? So your first job might be shit, because you haven't had any leadership experience, you haven't had any experience that you think you cannot effectively illustrate through your CV. You think that you can't get the most coveted job ever. Doesn't matter, all right? Do a simple job first, but have a long game in mind. Look at your North Star, but make sure that your job effectively maps towards your North Star. For instance, I give you another example, because I want to bring practical value to you, so I just try to illustrate as many examples as possible. So for instance, I've always wanted to be an international corporate lawyer, but I'm actually a government scholar. That means I'm bonded to actually go back to Malaysia. Before I actually accepted and actually pursued my international firm's contract, before I decided I'm going to break the bond, my end goal has always been the international corporate lawyer, but I'm bonded by government bond. So what should I do? I go back to Malaysia and I settle with whatever I had. My plan is to go back to Malaysia and be a corporate lawyer first, because that would effectively transferable to my and it maps towards my North Star. So that means I'll be a corporate lawyer in Malaysia first, despite the fact that I'll be working in some shitty firm, I'll be working with low pay and whatsoever, right? But I deploy patience and I work my way up. 3 years down the line, only I start seeking opportunities going abroad. But right now, at my first job, I would definitely be going into corporate lawyer instead of going to litigation, instead of going to banking and whatsoever, because those are the popular practice area that people always put litigation lawyer on the pedestal in Malaysian legal industry. But they think that, going to court are fancy as it sounds. A lot of people want to be fancy in court. But my end game is to be an international corporate lawyer. That's why I'm willing to humble myself to be a corporate lawyer in Malaysia first. And only then I start seeking opportunities to go abroad, because that's transferable and going, and it's easy for me to always take my next step. All right. So Always have your end goal in mind. Always have your North Star fixed. Your first job doesn't matter. All right, so I'll start taking questions now if you guys want to ask any questions. So first one from Sean, how would you identify who to follow and what are your approach methods to identify trend, formulate topics, opinion, and comment stance? Okay. So how would I identify who to follow? I think first, if you're not familiar with the industry yet, I would suggest you to join the LinkedIn community, like I say. Right? Join the LinkedIn community on a specific topic that you are interested in, for instance, like blockchain, and start identify from that community itself who are the thought leaders who constantly post out comments that generate a lot of likes, generate a lot of comments, generate a lot of perspective. Those are the thought leaders that you think that you should follow, right? And also be strategic about your giving 2 cents, for instance. Right? Don't give your 2 cents in a post that no one reads. Right? Give your 2 cents on some like the thought leaders post, for instance. Right? Because when people read the post from the thought leaders, they'll read their comments as well. And if your comments are constructive, it's valuable, people will like, and that comes out from that. So that's a lot on like marketing strategy. People just deploy in like marketing, but you can do it in LinkedIn as well because that's how algorithm works in all the social media, in Google AdWords as well. What are your method identifying trend and formulate topics, opinions, and comments? So for instance, you just see what the thought leaders are discussing and go on Google and Google about it because there are tons of content online, all right, and generate perspective from there. And then you evaluate and analyze it yourself and come out with a personal opinion, right? So that it's I think you should do. Google. You should always Google because there are tons of content that people do not take advantage of. How would you have? Okay, second question. Would you have any advice for current college students on what they can do apart from studying to stand out and prepare themselves while in school? Okay, first, I think get involved, get stuck in. Very important. Join the society. Get out of the comfort zone. I'm pretty sure that you guys have heard about it tons of times. Get involved, get stuck in, get out of the comfort zone. But a lot of people listen to all this advice but do not execute on it. And there's a difference between listening and executing. A lot of people attending like talks and workshops and everything, they get inspired, they get motivated. They pay like £100,000 to go to some conference, business conference. But they listen, they get motivated, but they do not execute. So there's a difference between listening and executing, taking advice and executing it. So you know what you have to do already, right? You know what you have to do. Get stuck in, get involved in student organizations, start leading, try leading, and start working with people. Because only then, by trial and error, you know what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and how you can double down on your strength, and how do you develop your craft from it. So that starts from college time. And you just need to go and do. A lot of people just rather spend time chilling at home, Netflix, and when they can deploy the extra hour to actually have a meeting with another person. And yeah, so that's what I would give in terms of that. But apart from that, I'm just trying to think of something extra. Yeah, I'll come back to your question later if I do have anything. Hi Zawang, third one, from Yvonne. How do you define a constructive feedback and how do you improve our critical thinking? How do you define a constructive feedback? I guess by saying constructive feedback, I mean like provide a brand new perspective of the way they approach a question, or attaching another article that you think can complement the view or go against the view. To introduce new perspective is what I would say is a constructive feedback, because you construct an additional perspective on top of what they are talking about. Right, so that is my take on constructive feedback and how do we improve critical thinking. Yeah, it's tough, like to be honest, how to improve critical thinking, how to improve teamwork skills and all. It really goes down to you taking your time, work, and read as much as possible, reading as many perspectives as possible, reading as many articles as possible. See a single issue, how does people approach from different perspectives? I think is very, very important. And if you want to try right now, I think there's a very interesting topic, Bitcoin. Go read tons of articles on it from different perspectives, economists, bankers, government, how they regulate, how they plan to regulate, regulators. So from different perspectives, you could get, you can actually develop your the way you think, the way you structure your opinion, the way you you know, approach a certain thing, and that's all constitute critical thinking. It's a very big word, but ultimately it's all on your knowledge bank. And how do you build up your knowledge bank? It's by reading a lot. And yeah, that's how I usually approach that. Hi Sean, thanks for your question. Yeah, what are your go-to resources to gain different perspectives? My go-to resources. All right. You guys, if you guys want to write it down, it's fine as well. My passion is on commercial side of things. I love reading about commercial news, corporate news, especially on deals, on economic trends and market development and everything. So my go-to resources is Finimize. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. Finimize. So I'll just type here. Finimize. And because they really give you up-to-date market and business development on a very layman term. And it's even though you don't study economic or like investment banking, finance or accounting, you can understand it. And the way they structure their news, the way they deliver their news is that they give you like a headline of what's happening, and then they start analyzing by saying what it means for you and what it means for the world. So it gives you different perspective on what it means for you, what it means for the world. So then from there, when you start reading it consistently for a month or two, then you know how exactly you should approach a single issue. How do you analyze a single issue? Go about from the perspective of yourself and from the world perspective. That's my go-to resource. And apart from that, I think we're just reading the opinion column of each of the mainstream news website. For instance, go to the opinion column of Financial Times. Go to the opinion column of Wall Street journals. That's my go-to. But if you're interested in other things, go to their specific section. There's just a lot online. But by going to the opinion section, it goes without saying, people are just laying down their opinions on certain issues. You get to know other perspectives. All right. Yeah. Do you guys have any other question?
Right, like a lot of time during application, sometimes they will ask for like maybe a difficult situation that you have encountered or talk about a failure. Like how do you talk about it and showcase to them that your strength in, like, although you have failed, but you actually can showcase your strength to your employers to make you stand out from the crowd without sounding too negative.
Sorry, can you just repeat your question for a bit? I kind of lost it.
It's like during applications, right? Like sometimes they will ask you to talk about a failure or some sort of
Yep.
situations that you have difficulties with, and how do you like showcase your strength in writing those negative things? Put them off.
Right. I think a lot of times, right, especially all these competency questions or situational questions, people tend to just go straight to results, or like they list down problem and get results, but they skip the middle part on your illustration of your approach towards that result. For instance, your thought process. So I think that's very important. So the way you approach a question or problem. So by going back to your question, right? Give me a time where you're faced with a difficult situation. Is that how they usually the question is structured? Right? Give me a time. describe a time where you face a difficult situation and how do you go about solving it, right? So how I will approach it is, you can always overemphasize how grave that problem is. Yeah, I'll always try to say as if, oh, it's such a big problem, it's going to be the end of the world. So then, by then, when you describe how you solve it, it gives you a more credibility. All right. So first is to actually illustrate the problem in a single sentence and put it in your first sentence. Second is that you need to say your approach towards it. For instance, I'll just say one that I commonly write about. So during my student college, during my college days as a student council president, I faced with a problem whereby EON, I'm not too sure if you're aware of, the learning hub got closed without giving any explanation. And that was a very, very massive problem because students are threatening to go on strike. They refuse to go to class because learning hub is being closed without explanation. So as a student council president, I was being put on the front line where people are criticizing student council. Why are you not doing anything? Why are you not standing up for us and whatsoever? So then, my second sentence would be, first, I actually analyze the problem by going down to Learning Hub and speak to the students and know fundamentally how important Learning Hub is to them. Right? So knowing the context first, and then subsequently, I discuss with my student council community, right? And then you need to insert another problem, for instance, by saying that there are certain student council committee that refuse to go against the college administration, because some of them are actually a bursary holder, so they don't want to offend the management. So then I actually took my time to speak to them personally and deploy empathy in knowing their problem. And then, but I stood by my principle by reminding them what student council essentially are and what our role is in standing up for students. So then I convinced them to come on board. So then after that, I gather opinions and strategize on how we should approach this problem in a well-balanced manner, in a sense to juggle student interests at one side and the interests of the college in another side. So whatsoever. So it's about you illustrating your approach towards that problem. It's very important. And what's your thought process? What do you think, how you should approach a problem? You need to adopt a positive mindset. So a lot of people, they tend to just skip the mindset part. They tend to just skip the thought process part. They go straight to action. Where a lot of times companies want to know what are your thought process, how do you approach that question, how do you structure that problem, how do you structure your approach towards that. Okay, there's one question from Charmaine. Hi, Zhao, how do you balance law school, many organizations that are involved in your life? Okay, how do you balance your life, basically? So the way I approach academic is that I tend to reverse engineer, going back to what I said just now, reverse engineer what academic requires, for instance. For instance, law school. A lot of people, because as you guys know, law degree is very heavy in reading and heavy in writing essays. But what I tend to do is that throughout the whole 9 months of my academic study, before I start my year, I'll actually go read the past year questions and see exactly what usually comes out from past year questions and what's required, what's not required, how do they structure their problems, how do they ask in all the essay questions, what type of topic will be important and what's not, right? So from there, I reverse engineer how I approach my studies. So for instance, throughout my whole 9 months, if it comes to a point where I know that it's not going to come out in exam, I just deploy less attention on it and focus on my attention on the organization work, for instance. Right, so that's how I usually approach my academic stuff. In a bad way, it's cutting corners. in a good way, it means study efficiently. Alright, so that means the way I usually approach my studies is very exam based. So if you want me to read very very deeply and just know what the law theory is all about, I have no interest in it. I just want to know how to score well in exam, and that's how I usually approach it. They are good and bad, of course. By not reading in depth, that means you're missing out on an opportunity to develop in-depth knowledge about the law. But I recognize the fact that being a commercial lawyer, I do not need to know in-depth knowledge of legal philosophy, for instance. All right, that means I rather spend my time reading Wall Street Journal, for instance, rather than spending my time reading about what a philosopher thinks what a law should be like. That's how I usually approach things. And also, I guess I think you have probably heard about this before. Work, put in the hours, because a lot of people they listen, but they do not execute. And I sleep about 6 hours a day, but it doesn't matter how long you sleep, because people think that I don't sleep because of the things that I do. But the fact that I actually still do get 6 to 7 hours of sleep every single day. But it's not about the length of sleep you get each day, but it's about the rest of the 18 hours you have for the rest of the day. How do you make the most out of your 18 hours of the day when you are awake? Is that matters, right? Are you going to focus 1 hour by watching Netflix, all right, and not doing anything, when you can deploy that 1 hour to have a meeting and discuss and solve some issue with SMS people, right? So it's about how you allocate time within that 16 hours, that 14 hours, when you are solely focused on the work that you need to do. You focus when you do the work and you solve it. And it takes practice, for instance. It takes practice to actually able to deploy your focus entirely on the work that you are focusing right now. So you need to start practicing that. And also, I do watch shows as well, but I tend to watch show on a speed of 1.25. So I tend to speed up the show. So in a way, when I watch Netflix, I'll actually speed up the show in a way. So then it can save a bit of time. So I do still have my leisure time, and I can save up some equal time to actually read out on certain things. And also another thing, very interesting, is that I think you guys should start going into podcasts, listening to podcasts. I think it's quite interesting, and it actually builds up your craft and builds up your knowledge bank. Because instead of so if, for instance, if you're going to stuck in a jam in Malaysia for 2 hours, instead of listening to what His FM have to say, play a podcast on a specific topic, on a financial matter, for instance, or on the marketing, or just, for instance, on some motivational stuff. From there, you can build up your knowledge bank. So you spend that 2 hours stuck in a jam, but at the same time, you are learning something by listening to podcasts. So I think podcast is huge in seeing how the consumer attention is shifting away from watching to listening. So I think you can mark my words, seeing how Amazon Alexa is coming, voice activation assistant like Alexa, like Google Assistant, like Siri and all. We are moving towards consumer attention, going towards a voice-based activation. So voice is going to be very, very important. So by listening to podcasts and because that allows you to multitask. So when you do your housework, when you are cooking, if you have time, instead of listening to music, listen to a podcast, develop your substantial knowledge on a specific topic. Yeah, okay. I love from you too much. Cien, I have a question regarding cover letter. Link yourself company, I kind of have to figure out company. Cool. Okay, so this question is about how to gain deeper understanding on companies and how to further highlight it in cover letter. All right, so cover letter, very important. So cover letter, I think it's more important than your CV, I think, because that gives a further insight as to who you are, what are your beliefs, what's your principle towards approaching every single work. So you need to make sure you highlight your personality, you highlight your beliefs, your personal your approach towards a certain things in your cover letter. It's very important. That's the first point. Second point, how do you actually research on the company? I would say that you should talk to people from the company itself. So reading information on the company gives you a foundation knowledge of the company, for instance, but you need to understand the day-to-day work that is being transpired in that company. So what you can do is actually reach out to people on LinkedIn that has worked in that company before, all right? Message them saying that, hey, I'm a student from what, and I have some question regarding Maybank, for instance. You mind answering them? Some of them might not reply. Don't be discouraged because I think around 40% of the people wouldn't reply a LinkedIn message if there's nothing in it for them. But just be persistent in messaging people, and there's going to be one that's going to reply you, and then you can start a conversation from there. Get to know what's their day-to-day working life in Maybank, for instance, and ask specific questions. For instance, how do you define culture in Maybank in 3 words? So don't ask like, oh, how is it like working in Maybank? What's the culture in Maybank? But give them a specific context or give them a specific range to answer your question. Give me 3 descriptions of how would you describe the culture in Maybank? Or can you name like 2 initiatives that Maybank has deployed in embracing technology, in embracing fintech, for instance, right? Or can you give me an example or 2 examples on how Maybank trains their new graduates or new recruits, for instance, right? Define the scope so that it's not too open-ended and it's easy to answer. So put yourself in the shoe of that person that's going to answer your question, right? And define the scope, define the context, make it as clear as possible so it's easy for them to give you an answer, and that's something that you want to incorporate in your cover letter. So in your cover letter as well, if you, for instance, want to write to Maybank, identify 3 qualities that you think is important for you. So when I write to law firms, what I hold dearly of is the training programs that law firms provide, the innovative measure that they adopt in the law firm, because I don't want to spend 10 hours doing due diligence when there is an AI software that can do it within 20 seconds, right? So to what extent has the firm adopt innovative measure? And third is their culture. So I identify 3 key aspects that I would evaluate a company based on them, the 3 key aspects. And when I reach out to people, I just focus on these 3 key aspects, ask them specific questions, and go in depth on these 3 key aspects. So then you get the content that you need, and then you just put it straight into your cover letter. So I think that's what I usually would do. And cover letter, 3 aspects you need to address: why me, why the company, why me, why the job, and why the company. So why me would entails you illustrating your personal story, and that's where the skill of storytelling comes in. And I don't think we have time to actually address that. Feel free to message me. You can have a further chat about it, on how to actually tell your story. And that will go down to one-to-one session, share your story, and give my feedback on like how to actually like carve out your story. So it entails a description on your motivation, how you have come about, learning your craft, what are your hardships that you have faced. For instance, I spoke about how I couldn't speak a single word of English until the age of 13. How do I actually overcome the hardship? How do I take opportunity and grow from there? All right, and that's how you carve your story. Second is why the job, why the profession. I guess that goes down to specific sector. I can't tell for everyone. But why the company is what I want to address, because a lot of people, they just tend to just draw from the technical aspect of the company. For instance, they just say, oh, I want to join Maybank because Maybank provides this training program, because Maybank wins this award, or Maybank is the #1 largest capital market bank, capital market serving bank in Malaysia. So a lot of people just incorporate like technical aspect or like the strength of the firm, listing them down one by one without further elaborating on it, what I mean by further elaboration is that you need to tell them, hey, you have this strength, but how would I thrive in that strength of yours? For instance, you say that, oh, I want to join Maybank because Maybank has a collaborative culture. People tend to, the leadership tend to organize training sessions for the new recruits. So what it means for me, right, is that I can actually soak out as much as possible at the beginning stage of my career, and in turn, at the shortest span of time possible, contribute back to the company and develop my craft from there. So you need to tell them, you having that comprehensive training program, how I can thrive within that training program, or what it means for me. Or you can illustrate a previous experience, for instance. Like Maybank said that they have a collaborative environment. You say, I would thrive in that collaborative environment of Maybank because I have previously worked in ICMS across 6 countries with 60 associates. Hence, I have the confidence that I will thrive in that collaborative culture, and I embrace that collaborative culture. So then you give them a reason that, hey, they can actually relate, and you tell them that you are a good fit for the company, and you are a good fit with firm strength, and not just the company itself, but the firm strength. So then, positive, you marry your positive, your positive with the firm's positive. So I think that's quite crucial in crafting your cover letter. So incorporate your take on the firm's strength and ambition. Yeah, so that's about the cover letter. Do you guys have any other question?
Is there any more questions from the floor? All right. If there's not...
Wait, I have a question. Cool. Hi, Jawang. I'm Rachel, and hi everyone. Nice to see you guys again. Just real quick question. Mine's, I think it's more existential. I mean, in a sense, how do you narrow down what you wanted to do in that sense? Because you talked about having a North Star, but what if some of us haven't actually identified that North Star? So how do you actually, if you could just give us like a brief rundown of like maybe how you went through that process?
Yeah, definitely. So to be very frank with you, the reason why I spent my first year of my summer doing an internship with EY is because when I first started my law school journey, I hated law because English is not my strong suit. I hate reading, I hate writing, so law is entirely out of pressure. I hated law. But that's why I went to EY, because I want to go to professional services and potentially consultancy. So after going to EY, only then I realized that the substantial value that a law student would bring to a corporate deal, substantial value that a lawyer would bring to the table, that not every single degree will be able to provide. For instance, like consultancy, everyone can enter consultancy. Investment banking, like all degree can enter investment banking. But for law, it's a very niche area that I find out that lawyer is a custodian to a very niche and specialized area of knowledge. That me deploying self-awareness, knowing that this is going to be valuable, and me developing craft down this lane would allow me to bring substantial value to the table, as opposed to me trying to fight with the rest of the world by going to consultancy, by going to investment banking. Because then I will need to start off from bottom and start with everyone else from the bottom. Whereas if I go straight to law and I focus on developing my craft in law and in the legal side of things, I have a head start and I can bring a very unique value as opposed to all the other people. And that's why I decided to go straight down to corporate deal. So that means experience matters, right? That means how do you find your North Star? Trial and error. If you think that I somehow have some interest in entrepreneurship, go intern in startups, right? Go intern in incubators, and only then when you go down to the office and work there from day to day, only then you realize whether that job is for you or whether your passion is actually substantial or whether that complements your strengths and weaknesses, whether you can thrive in that environment or not. So I would say go do your internship because as a student, it's the best time of your life to try as many as possible. I've worked in retail, I've worked in consultancy, I've worked in professional services. And that's how I come about knowing that law and legal career is where I want to go. And that forms the crux of my cover letter as well. That's the distinguished factor from me as opposed to all the others that only have legal experience. Because then the interviewer tends to ask, how certain are you in legal career? Because legal career entails a very demanding work environment, long hours. Can you actually sustain it? Then only I will have that backup to tell them that, hey, I actually worked in all this industry and I know for a fact that I want to go into law. And when I say that statement, I can back up with my experience. All right. So just go out and try, because even as a college student, you can always get internship. It's all about you giving value first and just try to see where you can contribute in that startup, for instance. So some startups might not want to recruit people. It's all about you, how you sell yourself and how you think you can contribute to the startup. Then only you can convince them to take it in. It's about you providing value first. Yeah, so that's my take on it. So the potential of LinkedIn is massive in terms of developing a network, especially when you go to startup community. There's a lot of people tend to be active on LinkedIn. And also another question, another aspect that I feel like there's a need to address is also you need to monitor your audience on LinkedIn. So if you're going to message someone that's active on LinkedIn. How do you know whether someone is active on LinkedIn? You can see from their activity section of their profile. See whether previously have they liked any articles or they regularly comment other people's or do they write articles. So if you message those people that are generally on LinkedIn that are willing to write articles and write opinions and write comments on it, there'll be a higher chance that they actually reply to your message on LinkedIn. All right, so don't message someone that has like 45 connections and like the whole profile is empty and then expect any reply from there. And yeah, all right. So it's about identify who are the active LinkedIn user and then engage them if you want to ponder ideas or you want to ask for internship or you want to ask about the company. All right. So yeah, that's about it. If you want to approach someone that you don't know on LinkedIn, when you send a connection request, please write a note, sincere note on why you want to connect with that person. For instance, you can say, hey, I come across one of your articles that I think is really helpful. It provides a brand new perspective on how I approach this matter. It will be great if you can ponder ideas in future, and it will be great if you can connect right now. Or so if you're going to ask something, say, hey, I noticed that you work with this amazing firm of Maybank, and I've always wanted to find out more about the firm, and I think that you can actually provide some solid advice for me. Do you mind if I connect with you and ask you a couple of questions? And yeah, so it goes a long way by inserting a personal note. Yeah, so that's about what I want to say.
Is there any more questions? Sorry that we are slightly delayed in ending.
Yeah, so one more thing before I end this call is that if you guys do have CVs and cover letters that you want to ponder ideas with me, feel free to send it to me. I'm more than happy to just give you my 2 cents on it. How you should improve on it or whatsoever. By no means I'm an expert, but I'm just sharing my experience and just sharing my take and my perspective on certain aspects. All right. So feel free to email me. I'll leave my email on the chat box. All right.
All right. So if there's no more question, we are going to end today's workshop. And thank you to everyone for attending the workshop today. A huge appreciations go to Zhao Wang, who are here to share his inspiring story with us. Like what he says, sometimes we tend to stay in our comfort zones, although we are trying to achieve something. After this workshop, I hope everyone will put our thoughts into action. Like what he says, CV is not just a paper, it's actually we acting as a salesman to pitch our own story. It's about us providing the values And LinkedIn is not an online CV. It is actually a professional community for us to reach out to potential recruiters and also to form valuable networks. So if you have any question, you can ask Zhao Wang. And if you have any feedbacks or any comments towards today's workshop, please don't be afraid to reach out to me. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Zhao Wang, for being here with us today. And
thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention. And I'll see you guys. Take care.
And thank you to Chao Peng. It's a collaboration between PCD and EOP. Thank you for making such a nice poster for us as well. And thank you, everyone. We hope you learned something. All right.
Yeah. Have a great Sunday. Bye.
Bye-bye.